Topic today is my theory of special tremolo. Um, and I've never actually really articulated this before, or and maybe in a post on my website once long ago, but um, uh, I've spoken more about general tremolo and a lot more than that, even about the burst speed. I think everyone who knows, or a lot of people who know liturgy, definitely know what the burst speed is, which is fundamentally about rhythm and percussion, drumming style. And general tremolo is, basically it's about both my guitar playing style and my production style. And in anyway, I tend to just talk about general tremolo, but there's actually a special tremolo also. And originally I and special tremolo is just about guitar, whereas general tremolo sort of extends aspects of special tremolo into other instruments, other aspects of the recording and the recording process. Those, if that's reminds you of something, it's probably special relativity and general relativity, which are two very significant theories from Einstein. For those who don't know, special relativity is about the speed of light. Basically, the idea that the speed of light remains constant for all observers, no matter how fast the observers are moving or where they are. The speed of light at any point. Which has implications for the quantum world, and then general relativity is a theory of gravity. It sort of incorporates this insight about light into a theory of space that includes gravity. So general relativity is a lot more complicated. But basically, I mean, and I'm no expert in physics, but a big aspect of what special relativity says, is that in some ways space and time are kind of the same thing. That time is a dimension of space, because when it says, like, everyone kind of knows the train, the train's moving, the light on the train is, the speed of the light of the train is not going any faster than the train itself. There's a trade-off. What I think is less, everyone kind of knows this, like, paradox, or at least has heard it somewhere, but what is people don't think about as much as the way that the way you make up for the speed of the light being the same is that you subtract from the size of space, or the amount of time. It's like, if the speed of light has to be the same as something that isn't light, that is moving along with, what you take away from is the amount of time that was taken, or the size. This is the thing about this. The speed of light is a really, really fascinating thing. Because space and time don't have their own definitions. Space and time are defined reciprocally through their relationship via the speed of light. So the speed of light is kind of just like, you could say it's the speed at which information can travel, or it's, the speed of the universe, the speed limit of the universe. It really has very little to do with just light in the sense of, the frequency range of like light that we can actually see, or even just the electromagnetic spectrum in general. Okay, anyway, so here's how I'm applying the idea of special tremolo to guitar playing. So first, let's step back a second, and talk about what tremolo is in general, right? So this, I should say this, general tremolo only applies to liturgy. As far as I know, I'm the only composer who employs general tremolo, just like with the burst beat. Special tremolo, it's similar in some ways to Hyperborea and black metal. Like it's my analysis of what black metal is already doing. I don't know that every black metal band or musician would agree with me about that analysis, but in my opinion, it is already present in black metal. And so, also, if you don't know this, the guitar playing style in black metal is called tremolo. So when you're playing really fast with your right hand, holding chords with your left hand so that it kind of sounds like a sustained chord, that's tremolo. And that's universally accepted. And guitar tremolo in black metal is not the only place where we find this. It was not developed. It's not like specifically an electric guitar technique. It's a technique that you can actually find in a number of different string instruments. And what I define it as is tremolo is a style of tone production that emphasizes the space of indiscernibility between the digital and the analog, or between, let's say, discrete units and the continuous. So the discrete and the continuous. That it's neither of the two. And you can arrive at it from either direction. So for example, when you play tremolo on a mandolin is, mandolin's like a little guitar, and it's an instrument that you pick, similar to a guitar, and it's kind of like, it's much more of a vernacular kind of ordinary thing to do on the mandolin than on the guitar, to play really fast on the right hand, and you're kind of playing a melody, and so by picking a note really fast, a sustained note, you kind of give the sense that it's a melody rather than a series of discrete picks. Whereas, say, on a violin or any bowed instrument, you can also make tremolo, but it kind of means something totally different. It's the opposite. So a bowed instrument is by default continuous, unlike a plucked or picked instrument, which is by default discrete. And so tremolo for a bowed instrument actually means wobbling, sort of wobbling the string to sort of create pulses. So there you're going from the continuous to the discrete, and with the mandolin you're going from the discrete to continuous, but in either case you're kind of in between the two. And I just think this is a really special place. So in special tremolo, I maintain that only the guitar is capable of special tremolo. Bowed instruments, acoustic instruments can't do it. It requires something more, which is gain. So that distortion that comes from originally an accident of sort of pushing an amplifier farther than it should go, and then creating a little more of a square wave sound and more sustain, means that when you play tremolo on a distorted electric guitar, you really pretty much get a sustained tone in a way that is, I guess, fuller than what you get from the same in an acoustic instrument. And the effect that produces, and this is really what first drew me to black metal, is that it opens up a kind of wormhole between the tradition of rock music and the tradition of classical music. So an electric guitar playing tremolo sounds like a string orchestra. And a violin playing tremolo sounds like a violin playing tremolo. A mandolin playing tremolo sounds like a mandolin playing tremolo. But an electric guitar playing tremolo sounds like a string orchestra. And it's kind of interesting that you find this first activated by black metal in the 90s, but simultaneously also in the 90s you find it in totalism. So Glenn Branca, and I guess this was even the 80s, but the really kind of totalist stuff that he wrote was more in the 90s. Glenn Branca guitar symphonies, some of them have passages that sound just like they are black metal, and I feel like that's because there's a world historical reason for that. Like there was when with grunge, something happened with music counterculture and the sort of commodified culture industry, where with like Nirvana, the distinction between those things was sort of shattered, and so there was a need for something more radical, and that was exemplified in Norway with black metal, as well as in New York with Glenn Branca. And in my actual lineage, I'm a New Yorker, so I am much more on the Branca side of the spectrum in terms of my actual heritage or tradition. I've always kind of approached black metal from the outside, and Branca, like me, was very explicit about having a relationship to classical music, although he was not interested in 19th century classical music the way I am. He was very interested in the scene of classical music that was contemporary, or a little older than him, but still around, still pretty contemporary, which was minimalism. And so he was at this intersection between punk, minimalism, no wave, but in some ways I think that he, that whole attitude was still there's something just more radical about being like out in Norway doing this, and really, I guess, not having any sense of any kind of modernist heritage at all or something. Um, and like, and black metal is so occult and so pagan and all that sort of stuff. And Branca was very, very firmly atheist and secular. So anyway, special tremolo. The way I really use it, though, there is a kind of unique flavor that I add to special tremolo, which is to simply make use of the higher notes on the neck above the 12th fret. I should probably do a demo of this. I'm sure people would actually like that a lot if I played some guitar. But the range of the guitar is pretty similar to the range of a cello, like kind of between a cello and a viola. But like really like this, the notes that really activate the transformation that I'm talking about, or the kind of cultural alchemical synthesis, they're a little higher. You don't sound like a string orchestra when you're an electric guitar until you're sort of like playing like harmonies that are at pitches that are above E5, I would say. That's kind of that range that people begin to really associate with violins and violas. Violin can play much higher than a guitar can, but like the upper range of a cello, and that's something that there are more and more. There are black metal bands who are using special tremolo. I think it should be way more. I really don't get why it's not a bigger thing. It's like such an untapped potential of the electric guitar. It's not untapped, but it's not like transcendental black metal. I sort of would have imagined that like the sound of transcendental black metal would be defined somewhat by the burst speed and also by this really high pitched guitar playing, which you just don't find that much in black metal still. So that's special tremolo, and let me see if I can neatly connect that to the thing about light. I think that the connection. In some ways, I'm mentioning light just to sort of encourage people to like maybe the next YouTube video you watch could be about the speed of light. It's just nice to think about these things. It's really interesting stuff. But I think that when the speed of light was discovered and the nature of light was discovered, one aspect of there's this mystery to various aspects of the indeterminacy that go along with light, and one of them is that light is both discrete and continuous, that in some contexts you can make it act like a series of particles, of photons, and in other contexts it can act as a wave. And this is something that is really, it's people use it all the time, but we have no philosophical understanding of what that means, and reason may never conquer that. Like that may be just something sort of absolute about the nature of reality, that when it comes to um, electromagnetism, that there are properties that are, especially in very small, there are properties that are both discrete and continuous. Um, and yes, that's somehow in tremolo in music, that is something about that principle is kind of manifested in tremolo. Um, not just manifested, not just represented, but like that this is an instance of it. That like the same sense of like yearning that I think probably the physicists who were originally really wrestling with those questions felt is present. I feel it when trying to write music, that there's like this it's like you want things to somehow both be discrete and continuous, or completely one or the other, and like there's just kind of this wall, but there's like this thirst for somehow those to be united, and that thirst kind of, it just kind of drives you to create in ways to kind of make up for the fact that it's impossible, to kind of pin it down or to fully collapse it. I don't know. So there's some thoughts. Special tremolo.